so far this year, 2024. Now, all through the year, troops were confronted by different threats in 5 active theaters across the country. And these theaters are the Northeast Theater, the Northwest, the North Central, the South-South, and the Southeast Theater, which are scattered all around our country. Indeed, since January till date, the Northeast Theater has been characterized by activities of the Boko Haram and the ISWAP terrorists, as well as elements of armed militia. Troops, in the course of their operations, have denied the terrorists the ability to carry out major offensives. And in doing so, the terrorists have been limited to low-level skirmishes and attacks, which are mostly on soft targets. Similarly, in the Northwest Theater, terrorists and violent extremists targeted troops and other security agencies, as well as vulnerable communities in the course of the year. Some of the terrorists encountered in the Northwest are transnational jihadists that have entered into a marriage of convenience with local terrorists to steal the nation's natural resources. In the North Central Theater, troops experienced activities of violent extremists that mostly targeted soft targets. These violent extremists were engineered by issues related to farmer-header clashes, land grabbing, and ethnic nationality issues. In the Southeast Theater, that theater was marred by the activities of the indigenous people of Biafra and their Eastern Security Network terror group, while in the South-South Theater, that theater was marred mainly by the activities of crude oil theft. Troops confronted all these threats across the theaters by adopting a high level of alert, as well as an increased state of readiness to protect the country from further terrorist aggression. Accordingly, the terrorists were forced to pay a price for every act of aggression against citizens and for every escalation of the security situation. The stance of troops culminated in over 500 terrorist leaders and commanders wiped off the battlefield so far this year, 2024. Now, since the beginning of the year, troops operation across the various theaters has culminated in over 8,000 terrorists neutralized and over 11,000 of them arrested, even as we rescued over 6,376 hostages. What this means is that we delivered damage to the terrorist fighting capabilities as well as their military capabilities. And this is partly the reason they go after soft targets, being the cowards that they are. Furthermore, troops recovered over 8,216 weapons in the course of the year, and over 211,000 ammunition in the course of operations in the air. This means that we have significantly delivered damage to the terrorist military capabilities, and this partly explains why we have more of them surrendering, with surrendering corridors now activated in the North Central. Since the beginning of the year, troops have denied the oil theft of an estimated sum of about 58 billion naira since January. The breakdown of our recoveries are as follows. We recovered over 4,000 AK-47 rifles. We recovered over 1,000 locally fabricated guns, over 730 den guns, and over 240 pump-action guns, among other items recovered in the course of the year. Additionally, over 53 million liters of stolen crude oil was recovered in the course of the year, and over 9 million liters of illegally refined AGO, popularly known as diesel, was recovered. Over 90,000 liters of DPK, popularly known as kerosene, and over 150,000 liters of PMS, otherwise known as petrol, was recovered, among other items, during the year. Having said that, I will take us through our various operations, beginning with the Northeast, where we have Operation Hadinkai. The troops of Operation Hadinkai fought intensively from January to date against the terrorists. The troops invaded terrorist hideouts, their strongholds and enclaves, to flush out terrorists and destroy them wherever they were and are hibernating. Additionally, offensive operations were conducted to known terrorist safe havens, such as the Sambisa Forest, the Timbuktu Triangle, as well as the Tumbuks, which is along the Lake Chad Basin. Several terrorist leaders, combatants, and their families surrendered as a result of the intensity of troops operations. Many of the terrorists on the wanted lists have been taken off the battlefield, and sooner than later, we will be putting out a new poster or banner of wanted terrorists, being that those that are on the banner, the current banner, have been taken out, and we need to take out their replacements. Overall, from January to date, troops of Operation Hadinkai neutralized 918 terrorists, arrested 2,285 of them, and rescued 1,496 kidnapped hostages in the course of the year so far. Additionally, troops recorded over 15,950 surrendered terrorists, and these are combatants and their families. This demonstrates how the motivations of the terrorists is getting lower and lower each passing day. The summary of recovered items include 1,682 AK-47 rifles, 392 fabricated rifles, over 400 den guns, and over 360 assorted ammunition, among others. Now to the North Central, where we have Operation Safe Haven. The troops of Operation Safe Haven have significantly restored peace in the plateau. And don't quote me, you can quote the governor of Plateau State. Those were his words. Now, though the year commenced on the wrong footing in the Plateau, the troops have boxed in the terrorists and limited their activities to low-level skirmishes from time to time. Troops have neutralized several of the terrorists and violent extremists, their leaders, their commanders, and their combatants. The troops of Operation Safe Haven also have continued to dismantle the support network for the terrorists and violent extremists operating in the Plateau in the course of their operations. These operations have led to several arrests of notorious gun runners, kidnappers, informants, as well as terrorist collaborators. Overall, troops of Operation Safe Haven neutralized 411 violent extremists in the course of the year, arrested over 1,800, and rescued over 920 kidnapped hostages in the course of their operations this year. The troops of Operation Safe Haven also recovered 238 AK-47 rifles, over 300 fabricated guns, and over 295 assorted ammunition and ammo, among others. Still in the North Central, let's take a peek into Operation Wild Stroke. The troops of Operation Wild Stroke sustained their operations all through the year in Benue, Taraba, and Nasarawa states. The troops' operations significantly delivered damages to the terrorist fighting capabilities as well as their military capabilities. The troops of Operation Wild Stroke did not relent, but hunted down the terrorists, flushed them out, and striking them in areas in which they were hibernating. The troops also arrested several notorious gun runners, kidnappers, and terrorist collaborators. Now, in the course of the year, I have been churning out their names, and so you have those details already. The terrorists were denied the ability to carry out major offensives to harm citizens. Rather, they carried out low-level skirmishes on soft targets. This explains why we're having several attacks on isolated communities, which we are working on how to prevent in future. Overall, the troops of Operation Wild Stroke neutralized 583 terrorists, arrested 916 of them, and rescued 649 kidnapped hostages in the course of their operations so far this year. The troops also recovered 291 AK-47 rifles, over 300 assorted ammunition and arms, and over 12,000 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special ammunition, among others. Let's now move to the Northwest, where we have Operation Hadarin Daji. The troops of Operation Hadarin Daji have since January to date continued to create a conducive and stable security environment for agricultural activities and other forms of socio-economic activities in the following states: Kaduna, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Zamfara in the Northwest, as well as Niger State in the North Central. The troops of Operation Hadarin Daji, in the course of their operations, boxed in the terrorists, thereby cutting off their resupply routes and chains. The troops also attacked the center of gravity of these terrorists. And this has led to several notable terrorist leaders, commanders, and combatants neutralized. Overall, since the beginning of the year till date, the troops of Operation Hadirin Daji neutralized over 2,646 terrorists, arrested over 1,654 of them, and rescued over 2,339 kidnapped hostages in the course of the year so far. Additionally, the troops of Operation Hadirin Daji recovered 1,341 AK-47 rifles, 424 fabricated guns, and over 486 assorted ammunition, among others. Still in the Northwest is Operation Wild Punch. The troops of Operation Wild Punch have since January till date delivered significant damage to the terrorist military and fighting capabilities. The troops' onslaught has cost the terrorists motivation to get lower and lower each passing day. This has culminated in the surrendering now witnessed in the North Central Operational Theater. Overall, troops of Operation Wild Punch neutralized 732 terrorists, arrested 1,842 suspects, and rescued 569 kidnapped hostages in the course of their operation so far this year. The troops also recovered 357 AK-47 rifles, over 289 assorted arms, and over 12,300 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special ammunition, among others. Now to the South-South, where we have Operation Delta Safe. The troops of Operation Delta Safe, since January till date, have maintained the momentum against the activities of crude oil theft. The troops have continued to find and destroy illegal refining sites, as well as arrest the perpetrators of crude oil theft. The rejigging of the operation significantly spiked the nation's daily crude oil production to over 1.7 million barrels per day, from less than 1.3 million barrels per day just some few months ago. Nevertheless, troops are not resting on their oars. We are urging for more transparency by the IOCs. We are urging for accurate metering. We are working towards ensuring cooperation of stakeholders in the sector, as well as cooperation from the local communities. Troops are also monitoring the prosecution of culprits perpetrating crude oil theft in order to ensure that justice is delivered. Now, since the beginning of the year till date, the troops of Operation Delta Safe have neutralized 78 terrorists, arrested over 2,176 persons involved in crude oil theft, and rescued 73 kidnapped hostages. Troops also denied the oil theft of over 53 million liters of crude oil and over 9 million liters of AGO and over 90,000 liters of DPK, as well as over 150,000 liters of PMS. Furthermore, troops recovered 524 assorted weapons, over 12,000 assorted ammunition. They destroyed 1,880 wooden boats, as well as over 2,400 illegal refining sites were destroyed, among other things recovered and destroyed. Now to the southeast, where we have Operation Udoka. The troops of Operation Udoka sustained the momentum in finding, flushing out, and destroying the indigenous people of Biafra and their Eastern Security Network terror group members at locations in which they are hibernating. Additionally, troops worked assiduously to curb crude oil theft in that operational theater, while addressing other security issues such as ritual killings. Our operations intercepted and arrested several indigenous people of Biafra and their Eastern Security Network terror group members. Additionally, many terrorist collaborators, gun runners, and informants were arrested in the course of our operations. Overall, since January to date, the troops of Operation Udoka neutralized over 666 terrorists, over 893 suspects were arrested, and they rescued 323 kidnapped hostages in the course of the operation so far this year. Additionally, the troops of Operation Udoka recovered 144 AK-47 rifles, 240 pump-action guns, and over 8,000 rounds of 7.62mm special ammo, among others. Now, in summary, I would say that the military is keeping up the pressure through ongoing operations in the 5 active theaters across the country. Through these operations, we are increasingly creating conditions in which terrorists cannot carry out acts of terror or harm our citizens. On the whole, as a force, we are constantly examining what we can do better. We are also examining what we could have done better in the face of the challenging security environment. Nevertheless, it is clear that things are on an upward trajectory, and we are in a better place today than at any previous time. Thank you very much. Now we'll go into the next segment. Battle damage assessments has equally confirmed that several of the terrorists at this location on your screen were killed, as well as their structures destroyed. Their logistic base. And that's why you can have fire like that in a thick forest like that. All right. So now we move to the question and answer segment. And I will begin by taking questions from my left. Is there any? Let me start by taking on the last question, which is what is the security arrangement as the Yuletide is fast approaching? Now, this is what I will say about it. The military is heightening its state of security a lot, as well as increasing its state of security readiness to ensure that the security situation as it is not escalated, and that there is no further aggression by the terrorists into our country. One thing is clear, and the terrorists know it, that they will bear the consequences of daring to escalate the security situation any further. As to the measures and some of those nitty-gritties, you will get those details later, because it is not just the military that will be on that beat. It will be a joint effort by all security agencies in the country. That's the much I can say about that for now. As to our efforts in curbing crude oil theft, I need not remind us that some months back, the President gave a marching order to the Chief of Defense Staff, General C.G. Musa, on the need for troops to curb crude oil theft and increase the daily crude oil production of the nation. At the time at which these instructions were passed, the nation's crude oil production was about 1.2, 1.25, thereabout. Couple of months down the line, what do we have? We have over 1.7 million barrels per day. That is improvement. Nevertheless, we are not resting on our oars. We are constantly seeking ways to push the boundaries and get more output for our nation, because we all know our current economic state, and crude oil is the mainstay of our economy. We want our country to do better. We want our country to prosper. So that is the much I can say about the question concerning crude oil theft. Have I answered everything? Okay. Say? Arms. Okay. Yes. Now, as to the question of the proliferation of small arms, the answer is not far-fetched. We all know history of what happened in Libya. We know the ungoverned spaces that are around the Sahel. We know the activities of transnational jihadists all around these regions. This is why, this is what has made these small arms easy to come by, and free flow of them for that matter. They have found their way into our country, yes. And I will say that the reason is not far-fetched equally. You know the kind of borders we have. You understand? So, what I think we should look at is that what our troops have been able to do about it. Look at the quantum of arms and ammunition that we have recovered so far this year. Let me translate that to you in military language. That means that we have delivered damage to the terrorist fighting capabilities, as well as delivered significant damage to their military capabilities. And that is responsible for the lowering motivations of the terrorists. Their motivations get lower and lower each passing day, which is also responsible for the surrendering that we are recording, not only in the Northeast theater, but also now in the North Central, and very soon we will have that all over the various theaters. That's what I have to say. Thank you. I will go to the right side. For you, I can do that.
What I want to get is, maybe when I start counting myself, I can be getting in trouble with you at the end of my story. I'm from 96. The first one was 96. You now declared the 9 LPPs every November. So I'd like to get out of.
Invigilator needs to give me extra time because I have so many questions to answer. Well, it's okay. Let's start with the good news. The arrest of Samuel Ekpa. It's a beautiful development. It's a beautiful development. And I must say that we must all know that terrorism is a global phenomenon. One country can't do it alone. And that is why we have regional cooperation and even international cooperation. And we are happy that the international community has seen it and have done the needful. He will face the law because terrorism is a global offense. It's not an offense that is only in Nigeria. No, it's a global offense. So he will face the music. And others after him or his replacement should watch it. We are coming. We are coming. That is that for Samuel Ekpa. Arrest of journalists in the Niger Delta. Okay, this is what I want to say. I think that coming on national TV to slander the military is very unfortunate. I think that thinking that the military is responsible for crude oil thefts in Nigeria is very myopic. I just reeled out what we did in rejigging our operations in the Niger Delta to boost our crude oil production in this country. First, we centralized the command so that all the security agencies will report to one place. Next, we begged for the transparency of the IOCs, more transparency. Next, we asked for what? Metering, proper and accurate metering to be installed. Then we did what? We asked for cooperation among the stakeholders. Then we asked for cooperation among what? The locals. And then we followed through by saying that we are going to begin to monitor the cases that have been taken to court to make sure that justice is delivered. We put all this in place. And what did we get from it? We shut up the daily crude oil production of this country from 1.2 to over 1.7 that we have today. I think, let me leave it at that. What we have today speaks for itself. And I've also said that we are continuing to seek ways in which we can make adjustments, make improvements, so that we can continue to push it up. Let me tell you the truth. In some crimes, that person will be under arrest by the police. He will be investigated because some of his comments were self-indicting. Go and play that video again. Self-indicting. You go and partner with criminals to perpetrate illegality. How? Who does that? Okay. So, Operation Fansa Nyama. Operation Fansa Nyama is our operation that takes the organization of what we have. I hope people understand when I say organization, it's a military language, but I think civilians understand it too. That takes the form of what we have in the northeast to the northwest. That is the type of the operation we have in the northwest. We've established it in the northwest. Now, take note that that operation commenced a while ago. Now, for the purpose of your accurate reporting, we have maintained the status quo from January till date, so as not to confuse you. So by the time we go into January, you wouldn't be seeing some operations that I mentioned their names anymore. What you will see is Operation Fansa Nyama. You understand? And you can understand now and connect to the question that gentleman is asking me, that how many persons. So you can imagine if I changed the name to Fansa Nyama, you guys would have been lost by now. True? Yeah. So that is it. It will be done by January. So let's take these names that you know till the end of the year. Then by January, we will put that out. Explosion in Zamfara. Linked, you said it's linked to, it is reportedly linked to the Lakurawa group. You said, and you said that was said by the police. I don't have all the details on that right now. So I request that you give me the opportunity to get back to you with more facts on that. As for the Lakurawa, I have said, it is immaterial for us right now, their origin, their history, or their purposes. What we know is that as of today, they are a threat to our national security, and we are treating them as such. Now, what we have done with Boko Haram and ISWAP in the northeast, we will do here, and even better. Let me tell you that we have been in a state of war, counter-insurgency and counter-terrorist war for over a decade, since 2009. What that means is that we have grown in a range of capacities and capabilities. We have grown in our recruitment, in our motivations, in our training. In fact, we have even narrowed the gap between commanders and soldiers with battlefield experience and those without such experience. We motivate and sanction our troops. And this has caused us to have improved tremendously over the years. And I will say this, that we are at a better place today than at the beginning of this insurgency in this country. There's hardly troops, officers, commanders that has not seen the battlefield. So, the Lakurawas, before they know it, they will be extinct. That's what I can say. I know some of you are in a hurry to go somewhere. If you want to go, you can go. I have some things to say. I told them to go.